My name is Errin Williams, and I'd like to welcome Christina Martin to this webinar.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Martin from Port Howe, Nova Scotia. So happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this. Really excited.
Yeah. So my name is Errin Williams. I'm a clinical social worker, and I've been working as a clinical therapist for 11 years and as a social worker for over 20. And I've been working with the ECMAs for the last couple of years to put together mental health wellness programming. And with the COVID pandemic that we're in right now, we wanted to kind of come together over the next couple of weeks and provide some programming and some interactive learning for us to kind of help deal with this isolation a bit better. We've thrown around a couple names. We're thinking maybe the isolation sessions. We're not sure. That's one we're going with. So today we're going to talk about how COVID-19 has impacted the East Coast music industry, some ways that you can maintain wellness through this time, and some resources. So, Christina, what was going on for you when COVID-19 started to really kind of hit?
Well, myself and my guitarist, Dale Murray, my producer, and also my husband, we were on tour in Europe. We were actually in Germany predominantly. And the tour was going really well. I mean, we heard the numbers going up, and people were taking precautions, but no events were shut down in the beginning. And then very quickly, we heard in the news that Germany, for example, was canceling any events that were over 5,000 people, and then it went quickly to 1,000, and then down to 500, and within days it was, even though the laws, the laws weren't saying that all events had to stop, but a local community for making the call and being very wise and careful. And within, it was 1 week, we had off. We were actually in Alsace, France, off. And our dates were just canceling one by one. And even then, it was on my mind. And I remember talking to Dale about that. What if we just stayed and played the shows that we could play? Like maybe we could still make the most of it. And I think I think initially a lot of people were panicking, and in part because, you spend, as we all know in the industry, you spend a year or more planning events and putting the resources together. And it was shocking. It was shocking. I didn't know what to do. I was talking to my friend Erin Costello, who was in the middle of planning her tour and trip over. And I remember Erin saying, "Yeah, I think we're still coming over." And within a day, everything changed. And we were all, I was getting flights home. And luckily we got home and safe and sound.
It changed so quickly. Like, I had a vacation booked, and we had thought, yeah, no big deal. We saw the numbers. Didn't seem like it was a big deal. Where we were going didn't have a whole lot of numbers. And within 3 days, we're like, why would we have gone? Like, it was like so quick that it just went from, is this such a big deal to like, this is done. This is, we're significantly changing how we are living for the next while.
Yeah. And I think, it's really was great to see countries finally, like governments, changing policies, because we probably would have kept going. Our shows were well attended, sick people were staying home. And we honestly, I don't think we should leave it up to people to decide, because it was spreading, and we were a part of that. And so by changing the policies, it was such a great call. And Canada acted, I think very, very quickly. And I was quite impressed by that, considering the numbers that Canada had in comparison to countries in Europe that we were touring. And so, although it was a shock, I think for myself, maybe this comes from my upbringing and my parents, my mother, especially, I quickly turned to, okay, what can we do? Like this ultimate radical acceptance of this is not something you can control. So now what's the new routine going to look like? How are we going to stay safe and sound? And you had mentioned, we were talking about wellness and mental health, and when it's really hard to help anyone when you yourself are in such a state of stress and anxiety and worrying. Like, and I do feel like Canada's done a great job of trying to take care of the basic needs. You mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
And I wrote this down, like, because when we had spoken before, we talked about just where this goes. Like, you had this tour planned, and you probably had festivals planned over the summer, like a lot of artists do, and then for them just to be canceled one after one. We start to kind of go into this kind of, anyone who's taken an intro social psych course has learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's so basic. Like, our motivation for our behavior will often come from wherever our needs are. And when our needs are for, financial security, shelter, food, like a couple of weeks we didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to roll out. And for the music industry, it rolled out even slower. Like, we're still learning how some of these programs are going to impact artists.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear at the end of this discussion what some of the other individuals here with us today are thinking about, how can, predictions for how this is going to impact our industry in the long run. Like right now, today, I could say, me and Dale and I are feeling pretty safe and secure. We know what to expect for the next 3 months. Financially, we did take a huge cut in revenue. But we do feel like our basic needs are met. We're healthy. We've come to be grateful for the fact that a lot of our friends and family are safe and healthy. And we're not. I think we've had to kind of cut off thinking past 4 months. It's extremely stressful to think about. I have tour dates that May, June, July that I have to, reschedule is even a stressful word for me. What reschedule to when? I mean, and do we put the effort into rescheduling when we might have to reschedule again? It's so that it's become this sort of weird, just ultimate lesson in day by day, week by week planning. What can we do from home?
And that's kind of the part, when we start to talk about wellness and we start to talk about, and we'll get into the pieces of what people have been doing financially, some of the programs, but also some of the things that people have been doing. But when it comes to wellness pieces, that part that you said before about radical acceptance is such a huge piece, because when we look at how kind of our thoughts and our logic go, we have like, emotion, and then we have like logic, and we have to bring it down into wisdom. And part of acceptance allows us to move on to do other things. So we can actually choose, if we stay in this kind of raw emotion of panic and fear without acceptance that, there's going to be some loss of income over the next couple of months, and we're not sure when things are going to open up.
Yeah.
We're not sure when different countries are going to open up. And, when we accept that, we can move on to things like, I think some people had talked about like just restorative type stuff, like really just how can I make this time really, really purposeful for myself? Yeah.
And I'd be curious to hear later on too, what kinds of things people have been doing. I know when Dale and I got home, I mean, the first thing was, okay, well, I need to take care of business. I mean, there's some immediate things I need to do so that I can focus on other things. But it was, we needed to develop a routine at home. Normally my work kind of drives the routine and the touring and gets you up out of bed and showered and you're going to see people today. And when that all kind of stopped, for some people, it's hard to get out of bed, to have a motivation to get out of bed. So I just kept making my lists of things to do. And I remember talking with Dale, like, well, there were things that we've been wanting to finish, music for months. And I think we need to shift the focus now on, we're not going to, what we were planning to do when we weren't going to tour that month in September, let's say, or November. Let's see if we can do those things now. And then if we are able to get back to performing live for people and on the road, then we'll be in a better position. We'll be ready for that, So let's be ready. Let's take care of ourselves, our health. Let's get rested. We're more rested than we've been in years. I'm noticing.
Yeah, but that's one of the pieces, like when it comes to a routine, one of the things I've been noticing in my practice is the people who are struggling more during this time are the people who aren't keeping a schedule. I call for their session at 2:00 in the afternoon and they're waking up.
Right.
Like a lot of people are complaining that they flipped their sleep schedule, that they are, awake most of the night, and a lot of times on social media, and not Snapchatting or whatever, like they're, watching TV, watching videos, stuff like that. And they've kind of flipped things around a bit. And that's one of the things we talk about first, because our brains are organs and they need nutrition, they need exercise, they need sleep. Often when you go to a doctor with a mental health problem, the first thing they'll try to rectify is your sleep pattern, because without sleep, we can actually seem more mentally unwell than what we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been one of my best friends. It's just a little whiteboard. Even though I put maybe not much on this, I even have a list of people I need to call in the next week that I haven't connected with yet. And then of course, I mean, if anybody out there is struggling with keeping a routine, I mean, I started a bullet journal, which is just a method of journaling and keeping lists, and it's all in one spot. And every single day you rewrite your daily list, and that's been helping me. And it, the list it may not be big, but I've also noticed that I was doing way too much. I was doing way too much in the old life. And now I find if I do one or two kind of major tasks a day, even one, I'm spent. And I'm coming around to accepting that that's okay. Like that's actually 50, 100 years ago, it would have taken probably people 12 months to achieve what you did in that day. So, pat yourself on the back, cut yourself some slack. And, I'm just realizing like, maybe I shouldn't be doing so much. It's maybe that's part of the my own problem, I suppose, of workaholic.
And it's also an industry thing. It is an industry that's a very competitive industry. And you always feel like if you're not swimming, you're sinking. The work never. It's not like, unless I'm wrong, what I've seen in the music industry, it's not like, you have, this task is now complete, I'll scratch it off. Like there's always maybe a feeling like there's something else you could be doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. This is true. I will say, from what I can tell, and I actually don't follow a lot of online stuff. I try to put a cap on how screen time I spend. I do my own work and do a lot of live streaming, but I don't follow a lot of other people. It's just me. But I have noticed like it has been such a resilient time for like businesses and individuals, and there's been so much online connectivity and people being uber creative. It's quite impressive. I mean, and I think it's also important for people to understand, and we don't want to be comparing ourselves to what other people are doing, but it is really cool. I heard, Dennis Ellsworth put out 2 EPs in this last month or so. And I thought, well, that's really incredible. And I'm excited to go and listen to those. But for some artists, they may not be able to, whether it's stress is a factor or not, at least be creating at that amount. Maybe one song a month is all you can muster up, or maybe not that, even that. And maybe your focus needs to just be restorative, connecting with family and friends.
And I think really one of the big messages for wellness is it's okay to feel whatever it is you're feeling.
Yeah.
It's okay to
Yeah.
feel whatever it is. If it's loss, if it's hope, if that something could be different, you can make some changes. Or if it's relief that now you actually, or you're feeling relaxed, or if you're feeling inspired, or if you're feeling like you want to put out an EP or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the part of acceptance as well, is also to accept ourselves with loving kindness, just the way we are, and whatever it is we're feeling is perfectly okay in that moment.
Yeah.
To judge
Totally
our
agree.
feelings, that's when we can start to create suffering for ourselves.
Yeah.
So those, and I mean, we also posted, for people who signed up, they saw the newsletter. For the most part, we posted other tips like exercise and protecting yourself, choosing the projects you want to work on. And then if it's something
Right.
that's not bringing you joy, don't do it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I just want to comment on that because a lot of industry and artists are going to get a lot of requests, and I know it's important. One way to help feel better is to do something good for somebody else and to help, but you have to be able to assess, like, where do I draw the line? What's too much? And it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
I
That's
heard
it.
something that I
And
thought was, I was driving the other day and I heard something. I thought, now that I think about it in this context, it wasn't maybe the nicest thing. Is someone had about one of the tributes for the massacre of last week. Someone said, "Oh, well, we'll for sure see so and so on that, the one that's tonight, it was Sunday night." And
okay.
um, and they're like, "Oh, they haven't released that person's name, but they're going to, but obviously they're going to," which is a lot of pressure. What if that person
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
doesn't, what if right now they can't? What if this is hurting them, or
Yeah.
it's hard for them? Um,
Yeah. I actually have a friend who was asked to do something, and we were talking, and they were grieving, and have a lot going on, other things. And I just said, look, you can, if you want in the future, you can do something at any time. Do not feel pressure. Nobody will hold it against you. And if it did, then they're a douchebag. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not everybody is also comfortable presenting themselves in this format. It can cause more stress. So I'm a big fan of, anything that's going to, impact negatively your well-being.
so do it.
Don't fight it. Yeah,
Don't
just
do it.
don't do it. There's a
Some,
difference between working through your nerves and, when I first started doing like online Facebook lives a couple years ago, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I knew I wanted to do it and get used to it, but then there's definitely a difference when somebody's asking you to do something and you're not ready, or it's just
you
not
have,
the right time.
you have to listen to your gut, and there has to be some point where you have to trust your gut. And some of us have been invalidated so much in our lives that we have a hard time trusting our gut. And sometimes we have to. Like for myself, I know I don't I don't mind this type of format, but I've done a radio show once. I didn't like that. I don't like talking into nothing. I don't
Right.
like
Yeah.
anything, because I'm speaking into, and I mean, God love all you guys on stage. I do not like when lights are on me and I look at an audience and I can see no one. Like
It's a
that,
little odd. Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like yelling into a black hole and you're just like, hello.
Mhm.
So
And
yeah,
and everyone's staring at you. You don't like that?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So but you have to know yourself to know, especially if you're already having stress, it's definitely not the time to do something that you really don't like to do.
Yeah. And it's also a good time to find what is it that you do like to do, and experiment with that. And I mean, for example, with some of the Facebook live streams that we're doing, as I was saying, when some people were, there were just a few people joining us. I started doing playing games with people to mix it up a bit. And maybe some people don't want to hear me talk and play games, but I don't care because it's my live stream and I can do whatever I want. I mean, I think being authentic and finding a way to be authentic is one of my goals. And so that's what I'm sticking to, that, you know, and I think people appreciate that. And if they're just annoyed by it, then, well, no, that's okay. But, you know, I mean, if you're gonna put yourself out there, trying to be authentic, try to have fun with the things that you're doing. It should be fun.
So how are you finding live streaming? Like, how are you finding making that changeover from, because you do a lot of live performances and you do a lot of in-person stuff. How are you finding that switch over? Because that's something that, because we're going to switch over to money soon and resources.
Great. It's a trigger for me. Thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
We already talked about this. No.
I know. No, I'm teasing. Yeah. So, well, touring is part of a rhythm that keeps me healthy. It also, you know, helps pay the bills. And there are lots of reasons why we love to tour. But I mean, when we got home, the week we got home, we decided, okay, for March, I had this grand idea, like I'm going to do, you know, live streams for every single tour date that's been canceled. And I learned really quickly that was too much to ask of myself, that I needed time to restore. And there were still other things that had to be done. And when I feel when I'm doing a live stream, it takes just as much energy and thought personally. I mean, this is the way I roll. Like I overthink everything and I want to try to find a fun angle. And so it was taking just as much energy as a show, you know. A show on tour, actually, after a while, you know, you get into the flow and you're not thinking as much about it and you can enjoy it more. But with the live streams, there's some technical things I now have to think about, and, you know, it's a little more stressful. So I became a little bit more selective about the days that I was doing the live streams. But for me, they were so important and helped distract me in a positive way. They kept me singing, which means I'm breathing, which means it's helping my anxiety. We do want to be ready for the day that we can get out and perform again live for people. So it keeps our chops up, so our fingers blistered for playing guitar, and just keeps my voice and my lungs strong.
You found it a good balance. So you found a good balance between the live stream numbers that you're doing a week and kind of maintaining wellness. So you found a nice balance so far, you think?
I feel like I have. You know, we do a lot of smaller, intimate performances on tour. And these are kind of like that. I mean, we're averaging between 20, and with the NAC, Canada Performs, there were over 100. And so I don't know, in my mind, it's kind of like, well, it makes me feel like we're still kind of out there. But people also are coming back and saying things like emailing and saying, thank you so much. Like, it made my day to have this interaction and to laugh and, you know, to hear that song that I requested. And so it makes me feel connected still. I don't, as much as I like being alone, and isolation isn't such a bad thing for me, but it's, you know, we've kind of chosen to live in the middle of somewhere, we call it, but on a dirt road in Port Howe. It's pretty calm and quiet here, and when that, you know, the pandemic wasn't even around. But I still know that it's really healthy for me to keep in touch with people, and I have a tendency to isolate and it's bad for my head. So it's keeping me, yeah.
And so, so in switching over to kind of more the financial stuff and some of the resources that are out there for people, what have you accessed? What have you been able to access so far?
Well, Dale and I have both been able to access the $2,000 a month fund, and also, so basically my all my revenue comes through my company, which is incorporated, Come Undone Records. And so I was able to access a Nova Scotia small business grant that was, I don't think a whole lot of people even know about. I can't remember how I found it, but it basically allowed me to apply for a percentage up to $5,000 of the revenue that I lost for the month of April 2020. And I was able to base it off of my earnings on tour in February 2020. So if any of you are watching today or have an incorporated business or a business number, a registered business, look for the Nova Scotia Small Business Grant. If it's still, I'm not even sure, the deadline may have been 2 days ago or today to apply to that, but perhaps they've extended that. That was very, very helpful. And as well, when we got back, Music Nova Scotia and Factor were wonderful, and we were able to access 100% of the grants that we were already promised for the tours, despite the fact that so many shows were canceled. So that was huge. It helped offset the revenue lost. In my case, I lost from the Europe and UK tour dates anywhere between a minimum of 17,000 and over 20,000. So that was extremely helpful to have some revenue to help with paying down the tour expenses. And still, yeah.
One of the things that I really I liked, I saw that and I gave Anastasia a link for it, is the government funding now. In the last week, I believe they had announced that royalties wouldn't be included in the eligibility criteria for the fund, the CERB. Is that what it is? CERB?
Yep.
Yeah.
CRB.
So, and also you're allowed to earn up to 1,000 a month when you're on it, because that allows people to still do things like live stream and monetize some of it, and maybe have people still purchase like merch and CDs and that not impact.
Yeah, and I mean, I have seen an increase in merch, digital and physical sales, because fans are really being supportive when they can. I mean, certainly not everyone is in a financial position right now to be shopping. We don't want to push that, but then there are people who are okay. They're doing okay, and they want to support, and they wanted to support all along. They just didn't know how. So I think it's important to know, to let your fans know how they can support you. And I read a great book 2 years ago by Amanda Palmer called The Art of Asking, and basically about stop worrying and just let people help. And we're artists, we're in the music industry. We need it. I remember writing to my Factor program manager once, and an email, and just being like, I feel so, spoiled to have you and to have access to this grant. And she just wrote back and was like, you need the money. Take the money. Here's the money. I'm like, oh yeah, I do need it, and I know how to spend it, and it's helping the industry. And stop feeling weird about it, and just ask. And there are ways to ask that can make you feel better, I suppose. But I think there's nothing wrong with having we've been calling our Tips on Tour link, the PayPal link. That's a direct donation. And I've learned over the last year how to let people know about our Patreon site. And I had the most signups this last month. We had 12 signups, and that usually takes a whole year to get 12 signups. And so people really, I think they want to support, they just didn't know how, or they have to get used to the idea of certain things like Patreon, which is a monthly platform.
I'm not familiar with that. So maybe that's something that you could put a link in afterwards, so artists could maybe take a look at that, or and also
absolutely.
And we also talked, when we talked beforehand, we talked about gratitude, Christina, like how to accept how to just accept that, we're in a situation and we're in a, just accepting the love and kindness of the people around us, and financially, but also just in general. Like, I have a friend who's in the music industry. She just had a baby, and I've been cooking food at times and making some things that she likes to eat and just dropping them out the door and just driving away.
Yeah.
It's accepting that stuff from people too, right?
Absolutely. When we got home, a neighbor and friend came by and left an envelope with cash, and they just said, "We've got some extra we want to give. We know it's going to be a tough while for you." Like, nobody knows, right? And we've had a lot of instances like that in my family, and I have a sibling, a sister that I didn't grow up with, who I got to know the last couple of years, and she just sent me a really sizable donation. And I mean, it's hard for me. It's always been hard for me to accept. I want to be the giver. I love giving. I love, paying people for what they love to do. And but just accepting and counting your blessings. And I mean, one of the things I do in my bullet journal, I try to do it every day. I'm not perfect. I miss days, but is listing 5 things that I'm grateful for. And it's also a great list to go back to, almost like journaling. If you don't want to, journal like a ton of stuff and, take 10 minutes, you can take 5 minutes and 3 minutes and just list 5 things that you're grateful for, and you can go back and it's a great reminder of those blessings, really. And it does it over time, the gratitude journaling, it does improve your well-being. I've seen it work. You grow to look for the things to be grateful for every day. They can be tiny things. So if you're feeling low, I really highly recommend just try and find, even if it's just one thing to be grateful for, like a really great avocado toast that you had for breakfast.
Like, sometimes it's little things. Like, little things can spiral our mood down, but little things can start to bring our mood up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just even, reflecting on things we're grateful for can help bring our mood back up from where it had been, because of something that's happened throughout your day. So just some of our wellness kinds of things that, are available to people. There's a really kind of cool, I test drove it the other night. Amelia Curran, who's been a wonderful advocate for mental health in the East Coast music scene, she posted a website called Wellness Together Canada. And I have the link if Anastasia might post it. I sent it to her, I emailed it to her. And I gave it a test drive just to see, but it's really, really good. It has lots of great resources. It actually did like a mini assessment with me. And then it provided me some resources that would be good based on the answers I had. So it's like, it's got a lot of stuff in the background, a lot of technical stuff in the background that shot me right down the right chute. And it was actually pretty bang on. I was like, that was actually it was really good. And it has resources on it as well. Also ECMAs. I'm doing one-on-ones with people and I've started. So I've talked to people this week. So providing some, whatever the person needs. So sometimes people just need triage to kind of know what's going on for them, point them in the direction of a community resource, come up with a wellness plan, or start one-on-one counseling sessions. And so if people are interested, they can email at wellness@ecma.com. And we're going to be doing some more webinars, some different topics, asking artists and other artists to come in, maybe some stuff around mindfulness, some gratitude pieces in there as well. I'd like to do one on parenting, because there's some people who've been touring a lot, and now they're like, whew, we're all home in the same house.
Are they making babies?
I don't know if they're making babies, but they might be handling the babies they have, and maybe they need
Oh, sorry, my mind went right to let's make babies. I will not be. I'm not going to be making any babies now.
Deal with the ones you got. Deal with the ones. Maybe you make some more. That's fine. That's next year's problem. But right now we have kids sitting home and homeschooling and.
Right, and it's really stressful for a lot of parents. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be reaching out to the members to see if people would like to participate, like you were kind enough to participate today. And also, if you feel like you're struggling and you feel very hopeless, or reaching out to 911. If you're worried about someone who you care about, the ECMA, and I also put that one there as well. There's a wellness page on the ECMA website that lists not just 911, but like in Nova Scotia, there's like mobile crisis. In New Brunswick, it's called Chemo Line. There's a bunch of different organizations we have for each of the Atlantic Canadian provinces where you would reach out if you're struggling or if you're worried about someone.
That's great.